Welcome to Tucker Carlson Today. We had a remarkable conversation with Mike Gross. So interesting, we broke it into two parts. Here's the second part of that interview.
My foundation has assisted over 1,400 people so far. I'd say that 35-40% are welders. I'd like to introduce you to one, actually. You'd love her, Chloe Hudson. She's 28 years old, and she was going to go into medicine. She was going to be a plastic surgeon.
Yeah.
We gave her a few grand under a work ethic scholarship. She learned to weld, and now she's down at Joe Gibbs, aerospace, 6 figures a year.
Oh, for sure.
No debt. Like, these people need to be on a poster.
Yes, I agree.
Right? Because the shortages are real. The potential is unlimited. And that's, look, that you haven't asked, but that's why Dirty Jobs is coming back. Because the foundation that evolved from that show is now 13 years old.
Well, I don't want to get it, this is like business stuff, and it's the network you used to work for and all that stuff, but the fact they took that show off the air was just so baffling to me.
Look, I blame no one. We needed a break.
Yeah.
Right? I'd literally been in those hotels for 8 years
That's
straight.
a long time. Yeah.
And we had done 300 jobs. We had shot in every state. And look, in a general way, I never wanted the show to be, I didn't want it to veer out of its lane.
Yes.
And I didn't want it to overreach, right? So it's a simple show about jobs you didn't know existed, taking place in towns, performed by people that are utterly anonymous, right? And that's what it is. Show up, pay attention, and leave. We treated the people on that show a lot like Access Hollywood would treat Brad Pitt, except they're not Brad Pitt.
No.
It's a guy in a sewer.
We're way better.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was the secret sauce, and I didn't want to change that. And there was some pressure to make some changes.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, look, we've all had a great run. I'm in a super unique position now, even better than after QVC. Now I got Dirty Jobs behind me. Now I've got a foundation, and now I have permission to build a business around some of the themes that are important.
I love that.
To me.
So how long has it been? What year did the show go off the air?
2012.
2000. Jeez. Okay.
But no, I'm sorry. It never went off the air, Tucker. It went out of production.
Well, I know that. I mean, it's like.
Yeah, but remember.
It was the last big show they had, if I could just say.
That's beyond my pay grade. I'll just tell you this.
As a viewer, let me just say, that's the last big show they had.
Look, nobody in that nonfiction world had an evergreen hit. No show. Even Deadliest Catch.
Yeah.
You can't really run old episodes of a competition-type show.
No.
Dirty Jobs was utterly evergreen. It was a trip. It wasn't even a show. It was just me saying, look, the crew and I are headed here. You want to come along? We saved you a seat. I can't promise you what's going to happen. I'm not saying it's going to be pretty, but it's going to be true. I'm not going to bullcrap you, right? This is what we're going to do. And so that basic promise allowed the show to live in reruns forever.
Forever. And it'll outlive you. Before I get to the new show, I should have asked you this 10 minutes ago. I'm sure there are a number of moments when you were nervous shooting it. Mm-hmm. But what's the one that comes immediately to mind?
In this new season?
No, in the 8 years that you did it, where you felt like, wow, we could get hurt doing this. What's the first example?
I field tested a shark suit during Shark Week in 2006 off the coast, down in the Bahamas. Stainless steel suit.
Yep.
You make it like a suit of armor. Jeremiah Sullivan's the guy who invented this thing. The job was to help him make the suit. But of course, once you make the suit, guys like Jeremiah go, well, let's test it. Well, how do you test it? Well, you put it on, you fill the water with blood and chum, you wait for about 30 reef sharks to start swirling in a giant gray ball of feeding frenziness. Then you jump in, and you let them bite you. So that was exciting. And, when you get bit by a shark, when you're wearing one of those suits, it's very strange because you see their mouth open, and you see it clamp on you, and you feel the pressure.
Can you feel the force?
You feel the force. It bruises you. But it works, obviously. I'm here. The teeth don't get that through the steel, which is great news. And so, that was, I think, the first time where I really thought, this seems ill-advised. I mean, really? Really? But there were many, and it's nothing that, some things are inherently dangerous, but remember, I'm an apprentice. So it's my first day on the job. It's Groundhog's Day in a sewer. For me, right? And so you know, one day we were in Michigan on the the Mighty Mac.
Yeah.
That big, enormous green suspension bridge that connects the upper and the lower
Of course.
peninsula.
The Mackinac Bridge.
Those guys were great. They let me all over the bridge. We painted it. We went down into the interior of the superstructure to do all sorts of crazy claustrophobic things. And then at the end of the day, as a joke, I said, the foreman there says, "You got everything you need?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so. But it would be fun. What if I were to walk across that girder there and then walk up that big suspension cable to, I don't know, maybe change some of the light bulbs up there on the cable?" Now, I say this knowing there's no way a government-run bureaucratic project is going to allow a guy to do that on TV.
Except in the Upper Peninsula, where they might allow it.
Dude, that's a different breed of human
It
up there.
is.
But the
They're
guy looked
great.
me in the face and said, "Yeah, okay." And I could still hear the sound of my sphincter slamming shut. Because, of course, we did it. And we filmed it. And that went on to become one of the iconic moments of the whole series.
That's windy. That's a windy. It's a strait, of course. It's the upper and lower peninsulas of Michigan are joined by this bridge, and the
Yes.
wind just screams through.
It howls.
Yeah, what was that like?
Well, I mean, there's Mackinac over there.
Yeah.
Beautiful little island. And there I am, about 600 feet up, and I look down, and the wind is howling, and there's here's the moment.
600 feet?
I think it's about 580 when you're at the top, and we had a Westcam unit, meaning there's a helicopter with one of those big cameras under it. So the helicopter is flying around the bridge, and we're getting like that master and commander shot. It looks great. And now here I am, I'm all in my head thinking, oh man, I'm going to look pretty good, right? I mean, this shot's going to be great, and I'm tied off and I'm changing light bulbs. Well, the thing is, when you walk up that cable, you're tied off on two sides, and you get to these stanchions, and you have to unclip and then clip,
Well,
and they keep going. Well, I get way up there, and now I want to get my shot, right? So I do some of this, and I do some more of that, and I lean down, and I'm hanging onto the cable, and I'm changing this bulb, and I'm communicating with the pilot, right? So the helicopter comes up like this, and they're shooting me in this shot, and I know it looks great. And I look down, and there comes one of these freighters, 600 feet below. Looks like this, right? Looks like a battleship game. I'm up there. And then I see something I didn't think I was going to see. In my haste to get positioned just so, I hadn't tied myself back in.
Oh, come on now.
So I'm hanging on like this, and I'm looking out like that. And now look, this is the interesting part of the story. Nothing changes. I'm in no more or less peril of slipping than I was before. The stakes of slipping have increased exponentially.
Well, you're in way greater peril of slipping because now you know that
and then
you're
once
free
you know,
climbing it.
Now you're well. Look, I tied off in a second later, but in that moment when I wasn't tied off, I thought back to Fred King, my high school music teacher, who gave me so much great advice. And one of the things he used to always tell us when we were on stage was, the minute you crap the bed is when you stop thinking about what you're doing and start thinking about how you're doing. So what, not how, was an expression he drove into his mind. And that's what happened to me.
This guy was a public school drama teacher?
Music teacher.
Music teacher.
He was brilliant. He was a philosopher. But what, not how became one of these mantras. I tell myself that now all the time, whether I'm going on a show like yours or whether, I'm shooting a...
What, not how?
What are you doing? Focus on what you're doing, whether you're selling a collectible doll.
That's right.
Whether you're doing a stand-up in Antietam or whether you're on the Mackinac Bridge. If you think about what you're doing, you're going to tie yourself off every time because that is part of the job. You think about how you're doing, you want to get the shot just right, you're going to take a shortcut.
Yeah.
And shortcuts, as you may have heard, lead to long delays.
Or,
long fall.
600 feet, 585.
Yeah.
I want to play the trailer. This is being released January 2nd, I think, right in the new year.
Sunday, 8 o'clock.
So that's a decade.
Yeah.
Amazing. Right. I'm just so grateful this is coming back. Here's the trailer of the new version of Dirty Jobs on Discovery.
My name's Mike Rowe. And this?
And this?
And this? Is my job. Dirty Jobs returns with a brand new season. Don't try this at home.
I'm not having a great time.
We don't do second takes. We don't do a lot of planning. We don't do a lot of scouting. There's no scripting. There's no writing. There's no actors. It's an honest look at work. See, I'm doing something through the lens of an honest day.
Strap in, folks. This one's going to be a doozy.
Woo! Oh, dear.
Now who's in charge? We never know what's going to happen.
Go!
Woo! But we always have a good time.
I'm going to need to put a mic on this bicep over here.
And we always wind up learning more than we thought we would.
That took it to the next level. Sorry, we're talking about the pencil description at QVC. I will never forget that. It's one of the greatest things I've ever seen. I personally can assess the skills required to do that, and I rate yours as Michelangelo level high.
That's some high cut.
So this show's coming back on January 2nd.
Yep.
I will be watching. Good for Discovery. How is this different?
That's a great question. It's not.
Good.
Our country's different.
Yeah, well, that's for sure.
So, right, what happened to me in 2009 when the show was at the top of the charts and the country went into a recession, the headlines caught up to the themes of the show.
Yes.
And suddenly, this thing evolved from exploding toilets and feces from every species and misadventures in animal husbandry to a real weird, anthropological look at work.
Yeah.
And people started asking my opinion, on all sorts of things. And the headlines made the show
Because you were the
relevant.
only one who was doing it.
That's right. I just happened to be there. And so suddenly the show became relevant in ways that neither the network or myself ever anticipated. It just happened again. We just went through a year of lockdowns. We just went through essential work being headline news. And I got thousands of notes from people saying, look, Dirty Jobs was the granddaddy of essential working shows. Why don't you bring it back? If for no other reason, just to give yourself a platform to talk about your foundation.
Because you actually took the time, and there are not that many smart, I'm just being totally honest, that many actually smart people in TV, you're obviously one of them, but you took the time to think about what it meant. It wasn't just going there and exploiting the weirdness of somebody's job in Michigan. No. You actually, it's so obvious, you marinated in how does this fit into our culture and how does this affect human dignity? And it really got heavy.
Well, you must do two things, right? I mean, there are two sides on every coin. And in that world, in the world of TV, you must entertain first and foremost.
For sure.
You must do something that makes people go, okay, I'll watch. And then, if you're very lucky, and the headlines catch up to you, then maybe you have permission.
No, but you clearly sat in your motel room in the Motel 6 in Fargo and thought about
I did.
What kind of society do we want to live in and what role do these guys play in that society and stuff that people were not thinking about at all, but that turned out to be kind of central.
Look, it was micro and macro. It was very small and personal for me. Remember, this show started because my mom called me at CBS to call me out on my laziness and bullcrap and to entreat me to do something that my pop would recognize as work.
Yes.
And that landed because the truth is, man, after I left QVC, I became disconnected from a lot of the things I'd grown up with, from the definition of a good job, from where our food comes from,
right,
from our history. Like basic things that I used to care about a lot, like a frog in the boiling water, they all just drifted away.
Totally.
Dirty Jobs reminded me, it forced me to look back at the things that were seminal. And when I say seminal, you know what I mean.
I do.
There was a fair amount of that too.
Back to the animal husbandry question.
Yes, but it made me reconnect. And it made me think, look, if somebody like me, who grew up with work, who grew up next to a man like Carl Noble, who had a front row seat to all that was good and decent, honorable and ethical, could become so untethered and so disconnected from that, well, I can't be alone. And so Dirty Jobs gave parents a chance to watch a show and then turn to their kids and say, see, there's dignity.
100% there is.
That matters. It's still fun, but, it became a weird morality play.
Yes.
And that's why it's back on the air, because if the country again, I don't want to get out of my lane, but damn it, we need examples of happy, successful, prosperous people who wake up clean and come home dirty.
Yes.
People who have prospered as a result of learning a skill that's in demand.
And skill is the key. You see people with no skills, making the most money in, say, I don't want to single out finance, but let's just be honest about it. And in the arts, certainly in journalism, people who are really kind of adding nothing, who don't have meaningful, relevant skills, benefiting the most, and you think that's just out of whack.
Look, we always hear it in terms of, geez, do we really want to pay our cops that? Our firemen that? It seems, the pay grade seems way out of sync. And of course it is, but it goes the other way too. I mean,
yeah, it does.
When you argue, this is not meant to be a political point, but if you're going to talk about the minimum wage, for instance, and argue that it goes up and up and up and up and up, well, in a lot of cases, what you're saying is we want to dramatically increase the value of unskilled labor. And if you push that value all the way up to where the prevailing rate is for skilled labor, then, well, we've got to push the skilled labor up too. And if you can't do that, well, then we're making a really heavy value judgment.
Yes, we are.
We're saying, look, all work has dignity. I'm the first guy to say that. But the way forward, the way up, the way to go from rung to rung to rung to rung is to increase your skills. And so if we don't find a way to affirmatively reward and champion those skills, then I'm afraid our workforce is going to be horribly out of balance.
Well, but and our moral sense will be distorted. I mean, that is, speaking for myself, you watch a talented machinist, and you obviously have many times, I have too, and you think, there's literally no chance I could do that. It's just too complicated.
You're talking about art.
Literally.
Literal art, right? And look, people ask me all the time, because my foundation takes a big role in this, but we didn't just get rid of shop class. We got rid of it, and the results of that are still, those chickens are still coming home to roost.
I know.
We removed all vestige of what all these vocations even look like for a whole generation of kids. But we didn't just remove shop class. The first thing we did was we changed its name. It used to be called the vocational arts. So we took the art out, and then we called it VOTEC. And then we took the hyphen away, and then we just called it tech. And then we were like, let's just call it shop. Shop? Then we walked it around behind the barn and shot it in the head.
100%.
But it started by removing the art. And that's why I spent so much time talking to you at first about music. Because art and work, they're not opposites.
No.
Blue collar and white collar.
Yes.
They're not opposites. Joy and work. There's a great poem. You've got a place in Maine, right?
Yes.
You familiar with Frost? Surely. Robert Frost.
Of course.
Greatest American poet of all time, in my view. He wrote a poem called Two Tramps in Mud Time that is a brilliant rumination on work through the lens of either love or need. Frost is chopping wood in his backyard, and a couple of tramps come out of the forest from the lumber camps. And there's an awkward moment because Frost loves chopping wood, but these tramps, that's what they do for money.
Yeah.
So the poem is about that moment where work takes center stage, and we have to decide, why is it valuable? Is it merely transactional, or is it something else? And so Frost sets it all up beautifully, and then at the end he says, my right was love, but theirs was need. And whenever the two exist in twain, theirs was the greater right. Agreed. But yield who will to their separation. My object in living is to unite my vocation with my avocation, so my two eyes make one in sight. For only when love and need are one, and work is play for mortal stakes, can the job be done for heaven and for future sake. So
Damn.
Not to get all deep on it.
No.
But why is Dirty Jobs back on the air? Because we make sure the viewer sees the love and the joy in the work, not just the difficulty. We celebrate something that is not transactional. And look, I just personally believe we've arbitraged that out of the whole conversation.
Yes.
And I'm pushing a rock up a hill, but Dirty Jobs has given me permission to at least weigh in, and from time to time drop a little art on the unsuspecting.
Every man watching what you just said for the last hour knows that what you're saying is true.
You know when you took a shortcut, and you know when you did the work.
Yeah. The great Mike Rowe, greater even than I knew. And I can't believe you spent an hour with us. We loved it. Thank you.
I'll come back anytime.
Well, you are always, you're one of those guests where, the producer always says, Mike Roosevelt, done.
Careful. I'm the kind of guy that'll take you up on that.
January 2nd, Discovery, Dirty
Yeah,
Jobs,
it's gonna be great.
triumphant return to television. Mike Rowe, thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.
Tucker Carlson is the name of the show. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Fox Nation. We'll see you every weeknight, 8 p.m. on the Fox News Channel. Wish I could get as low as that.